Now, into the ticket office of Disneyland.
Oh boy, let's do this.
Don't think the CIA is going to be trying to hack your second-gen iPod.
I didn't think so. There might have been a lot of illegal music on there. I wouldn't doubt it. But, I mean...
You were supposed to bring death to the flagships, not join them.
Google has found a new way to piss me off.
iTunes is a constant source of embarrassment.
Behind-the-scenes camera crap.
Here, tell us about courage, Phil. Tell us about courage.
I am Nadella. I can't do it anymore without laughing. I was going to do the whole thing. Welcome, everyone, to the Calling All Platforms podcast. I am your host, Wes, and I'm here with Landon.
Hello.
And Caleb.
Hi.
And we are here to talk all things tech this week, you guys.
All right.
You know, let's go ahead and get this elephant out of the room here. I mean, it's standing right there. We might as well talk about it.
Hey, I'm not that fat.
You know what? You caused this. Let's be real. You jerk. No, I'm just kidding.
You know, I will admit I did make some phone calls after we ended the podcast last week. They were very long distance, you know. But
Listener, in case you don't know what we're talking about, I'm going to go ahead and fill you in. So, Microsoft is a really big trillion-dollar company, and they're trying to buy a billion-dollar company called Activision Blizzard King. I think that's the full name, Activision Blizzard King. Anyway, so this has been going on for a very, very long time. Actually past a year and some months. Well, what happens with the process of buying or spending a lot of money, like $70 billion to purchase a company, it's got to go through a lot of regulators. Regulators not just in America, but all over the world. Well, throughout this time, since last year to now, there's been all these regulators saying that they approved this deal, saying, you know, this is good, this will be great. Going through, I mean, they've had Japan, Chile, Saudi Arabia, South Africa, all sorts of support for this. Well, kind of the bigger ones right now that they're kind of waiting on to close the deal is the FTC for the US, CMA for the UK, and the EU for the rest of Europe, obviously. And the 26th of April was the deadline for the CMA for the UK to approve or deny this deal. Well, they decided to come out and say they straight up block this deal in the UK.
Yep.
So why? Let's go ahead and let's talk about that. Why did they block this deal? Well, when it comes down to it, what they said is it comes down to cloud gaming. They are afraid of Microsoft having a lead in cloud gaming.
Now, specifically monopoly.
Monopoly.
They were concerned that this could turn into a monopoly for cloud gaming.
Well, go ahead, talk about it. Do you feel that, are we there?
It's an interesting point, right? So that's the news, listener, right? You have hit the news, and now you're going to get our opinions about this news.
Yes.
So from a perspective of just like what the UK was saying here, and honestly, I'm actually surprised that the UK came out against this. I was expecting the EU to shoot it down. I was not expecting the UK to shoot it down first. That surprised me. I thought that the UK was going to say yes. The FTC was going to be like, yeah, okay, sure, why not? And then the EU was going to be like, hold on, guys. But that was the one. I was expecting the EU to be the problem child here, not the UK. So this kind of caught me by surprise. But they're like, I read kind of their public statement and the general, just this synopsis of their full findings and stuff like that. Obviously, they've done a lot of research on the market. They've had interviews with market experts. They've talked to members involved from companies, both that have already merged with Microsoft and companies or representatives of Activision and representatives of companies that are against this merger and so on and so forth. They've done all of their research, and basically what their complaint comes down to is Microsoft has such a strong position in the online game streaming market right now, which I don't think anybody would dispute, Game Pass and their Xbox game streaming is kind of the end all be all of game streaming right now. And they were basically saying that if Microsoft continues buying up like other companies and adding their games to their streaming platform, we're concerned it's going to create an anti-competitive environment for anybody else who wants to enter the game streaming market. And essentially their whole complaint boiled down to online game streaming is basically the Wild West right now. And we really don't want to see monopolistic behavior this early on in this whole thing. Like it may be that Microsoft buying Activision and adding all of their games to their streaming library online won't make that much of a difference, but also it could make a huge difference. We just don't know, and we're concerned that it could be a negative impact for gamers in general, and so that's why we're blocking it. From my personal opinion, I see where they're coming from with that, because it is true that kind of, let's be honest, nobody's really competing with Xbox except for Nvidia with GeForce Now. That's it. Like,
isn't that only in America though? Like
it is. It's
they've made all these other
in
deals
scope
with all like everyone else in the cloud gaming too. So
right. So Microsoft and GeForce Now compete with each other only sort of, because GeForce Now is very much like PC games only, and Microsoft is more focused on console, though they do include PC as well. But a lot of, like they made a deal with GeForce Now to say, hey, Nvidia, you can be the ones responsible for streaming all of the Blizzard games if we buy Blizzard, because Blizzard is a PC centric company, and so it kind of made more sense that way. So, like they were trying to make deals like that in order to assuage regulators' opinions that Microsoft was just going to absolutely conquer the streaming market. Mm-hmm. But the emails that they read doing their research, I guess the CMA was concerned that Microsoft executives saw that as kind of a short-term thing, and that the long-term goal really was to just buy up everything so that they were the only name in streaming. So I see where the complaint is coming from, and I see how, yes, having that kind of a monopoly could be a negative thing. And like, these are antitrust regulators. Their entire job is to try and keep large companies from forming monopolies.
Right.
So, yeah, I understand why they had that complaint. But I think they're missing one crucial point, and that's that we have some history to compare against in streaming markets. It's called video streaming, which, like, being able to stream TV shows and movies was a big deal for Netflix. They were, not a pre-existing billion-dollar company that managed to turn into a billion-dollar company because they read the tea leaves and absolutely nailed the prediction of where the market was moving, and they were the first ones on the train. And it was, good for them. That's kind of how you want those sorts of things to go. But there was definitely a time when Netflix was the only name in online streaming. And if you wanted to stream anything online, you had Netflix. That was when online video content streaming was at its best.
Yes.
Like, that's the thing that I think these regulators are missing, is that, yes, having a monopoly streaming all of your content could be bad, but it's not the only way to consume content. And if people don't like what the monopoly is doing, they won't pay for the subscription. It's not actually necessary, And so, that kind of acts as the market pressure to keep your monopolistic, monolithic streamer in check, to keep them kind of honest with their pricing and stuff like that. And it worked for Netflix because they were just trying to, like, oh yeah, we got to get people to actually jump on our service. But everything was there. You paid one subscription fee that was relatively low a month, between like $7 and $10 or something, depending on how many streams you were paying for or whatever. and you got everything. And now you pay the equivalent of a cable subscription, and you're probably still missing HBO Max, you know? Like,
yeah.
It's like streaming has not gone in a good direction because more people are involved. It's gotten significantly worse. And so I don't think forcing the game streaming market to be like, yes, we have to have a whole bunch of different companies doing that, that's not going to make it better.
Yeah.
That's not, this is different than like breaking up a utility or something like that, you know? Like, if we wanted to have, like, honestly, if we could get some actual monopoly, right, like, you know, antitrust regulators to look at frickin' the cable companies, that would be great. Some of them need to be broken up. Some of those regulations need to target those folks. But online streaming, I don't think that that's actually going to help us in that circumstance. So, like, I understand from, like, a legal perspective why they made the call that they did, and I get it. I think that it makes sense from the way the laws are written, but I think the laws are written stupidly and they don't take this market into account, and they probably ought to be altered. But that's not the antitrust regulators' responsibility. That's legislature responsibility. So, yeah, I get why they did it. It's not their fault that they kind of had to make that call, but it is kind of a bummer.
When I was doing some reading as well, like really digging in, because I wanted to understand, because as soon as I saw that it was blocked, I was like, okay, why? And it said, you know, the main was cloud gaming. I want to be honest, I was like, what? Okay,
Yeah.
Instead of me throwing my hands up, calling people stupid, I'm like, okay, let me really dig into this and let me see what this is. I mean, I was digging into numbers to actually be like, okay, what kind of servers does Microsoft have in the UK? And like they have, so for example, like I don't know, without being critical or going down the path of being like, yeah, well, the UK, this, you know, because obviously there's that in there saying mean things about the UK right now, and that's not where I was heading. But it's interesting that they would call the cloud gaming thing, but yet like Microsoft claiming that, well, we've only got servers in the UK stable to only maybe hold 5,000 people on our servers for gaming. And so it's little things like that. I find it weird, but more. I feel like there's something else that we're not seeing on why they really was like, because I don't know if there was a dartboard on there and it says, okay, they've covered everything for, you know, console gaming. Yeah, we can't get them for that. Okay, they covered everything for this and this. Well, what's the least amount that they've covered? Well, cloud gaming. Let's stick with that. And I don't know why, but I get, like you said, I was sitting there trying to think, like, what could it be? And I understand it is a Wild West type of thing, like you were saying, Caleb, with the cloud gaming and that. But I don't know. It seems so. I think there might be something else, and maybe time will tell once, because obviously Microsoft's going to appeal this.
Yeah.
Which means it goes to courts, and then there's really going to be some in-depth thing, which obviously means that Activision Blizzard and Microsoft will have to renegotiate, because I think the deadline is June or July for them to close, which means there may be an extension, and who knows, maybe there won't be. Maybe the board of Activision Blizzard will just be like, no, they don't want to do this, you know. And
I think it would honestly be more likely that Microsoft would be the ones that are like, yeah, this isn't worth the effort. My understanding is that a lot of the fuel that led the UK regulators to make this call came from emails that they were given between executives at Microsoft that were kind of discussing, like, basically their intent behind buying Activision Blizzard. And, like, a large part of their intent, a large part of their goal was being able to offer Activision Blizzard games and King, I guess. I don't know if that makes sense, but
yeah, their mobile stuff.
Yeah, Candy Crush on your browser. Being able to offer stuff like that through Game Pass, like being able to include that as part of their existing subscription services, which, you know, obviously they want to improve the quality of those things and stuff like that. And I would suspect they would also want to add a lot of those to their cloud streaming stuff as well. And in order to try and like kind of assuage people's fears that this was going to end up being monopolistic, they had been in the process of signing a bunch of agreements with a bunch of different companies saying, hey, we're going to leave Call of Duty on your platform, stuff like that, which the UK regulators did specifically call out the deal that they made with Nintendo as being kind of stupid, because that deal was all like, yeah, you're going to be able to have access to Call of Duty for the next 10 years, absolutely no question about it. And they're all like, Nintendo? The Switch? Are we talking about the same console here? Why the crap does anybody on the Switch want access to Call of Duty? It was like, that was kind of their response to that, was like, we don't think that deal makes any sense whatsoever. You are clearly just trying to cover your butts. And so, but like the emails that they were seeing suggested that the long-term plan for this purchase was, to basically restrict all of these games to Microsoft's platforms and their cloud gaming subscriptions and their, Game Pass and their services in general. And they did make the point that they were also concerned that if Microsoft had that kind of bargaining power with the number of games that are available in their service, that they would also increase the subscription price of their services, which, that's valid, actually. We see companies do that. I guess, did Netflix really use that as an argument in the early days? They might have done. But I would counter with like, yeah, they probably would do that, but they'll increase it by like $3 or $4 a month, not $10 a month, which is what it would cost for me to also subscribe to a cloud gaming service for Activision,
Yeah.
So it's like, if I want access to those games, I would rather have them all bundled into the same place and pay $3 more a month than have two separate subscriptions, one of which I was already paying for, and the other one is now $10 a month. That's still more money. So like, I get why they're doing it. It's just, I don't think it's the right call from my perspective, from where I'm sitting. That does not make a ton of sense to me. It's like, Microsoft's long-term goal is obviously to make as much money from this as they possibly can. And, they're a giant, like Wes said, $1 trillion company. They didn't get there by being nice and fluffy bunnies to everybody. That's, in fact, literally the opposite of how they got there.
True. It is true.
Bill Gates has a reputation for a reason. But in general, Xbox has been pretty good about trying to make money by making happy customers. For the past few years, ever since the launch of the Xbox One went so badly, they've been trying to, they've been changing their attitude a little bit and trying to, yes, we want to make money, but the way we're going to make money is by making our customers happy and making them want to stay customers, offering them stuff that they want at prices they can afford. And that's the kind of attitude that gave us Netflix and internet streaming as we know it today. And I don't know, I would honestly kind of rather have a monopolistic company that has that attitude in charge of everything.
I'm glad you were saying something, because I've been kind of withdrawing, because everyone knows that listens to the podcast, I am an Xbox, a part of the ecosystem, and I've been that way. And I really have been trying to look at this not as I guess you'd call it a fanboy or whatever you want to call it. But I'm glad that you're there to really kind of talk about it, because like, I'm like, okay, to me, I'm like, heck yeah, just throw anything in there. I pay the subscription anyway. This is great. But I'm glad that you can be on the other side of it and be like, it is great, Wes. It really is.
Yeah.
And so,
like, the service as it exists right now is a fantastic value.
Yeah.
It's a great value add to have a bunch more games added into it. I get that from a regulation standpoint, it would be awesome if we had a whole bunch of competition in this space as well that gamers could choose from. But the only way that competition really benefits the individual consumers is if all of the same content is available on all of the different options. So,
and
like,
isn't that what they're trying to do?
that's what regulators would love to see. And I think what they saw from those executive emails at Microsoft is that was not the long-term intent of Microsoft's purchase. And so that's why they shot it down. They saw the long-term intent of the purchase being, we want to restrict this content to our platform exclusively after these 10-year deals run out, or as soon as we feasibly can. And, you know, you can kind of see a little bit of that behavior already in the fact that Redfall, which, listener, is coming out this month. And wait, is it already out? No, it's coming out like this week.
It's like 2
Honestly,
days, 1 day or
looks,
2 days.
Looks pretty good. I want to play it. But that was going to be on PlayStation as well, but it's now just Xbox and PC because Microsoft bought Bethesda. So, like, you know, they're already acting that way, and I get why they're doing it, but I still think it's a good value add for gamers just because, like, the price of Game Pass is so affordable in comparison to even frickin' Netflix, for crying out loud at this point.
Yeah, it's like $20 a month.
Yeah. So it's like I get what they're suggesting they would like to see, you know, like for my part, I actually have a situation right now where if I want to hook up to the internet via an internet service provider, I have a lot of competition for my dollars. Like, the network that I'm connected to is publicly owned and supported by tax dollars for a very, very reasonable fee. And that means that I have access to like 6 or 7 different ISPs that provide extremely comparable services. And really the only difference is, well, we've got these couple of little add-ons. These people do this little thing that's different. These people are a couple of bucks cheaper. Very minor differences between them. And you can kind of shop for whatever, you know, floats your boat. And that's fantastic. Like, that's competition in the space. That's what the regulators think they want to see from Microsoft and GeForce Now and PlayStation.
Yeah.
And too bad Stadia is not a thing anymore. You know, is basically a whole bunch of different providers of the same service that have the same content on all of them. Because it doesn't matter who I connect to the internet through, I get the same internet, regardless. That's what the regulators want to see, but that's not how streaming works.
Right.
You know? And so they're basically saying, like, no, we want Activision Blizzard to do their own streaming thing, or we want their content to be available via all of the streaming platforms. And no, like, what'll happen is they'll just sign a deal with a specific streaming platform and only offer their games through that one platform. And they just won't be merged with that company. So I don't really see what they're going to accomplish from this. I see what they're trying to accomplish, but I don't think that's what will happen. So,
right.
It's
I don't know. To me, when it's
kind of
hard,
frustrating.
It is. It really is, because, you know, okay, if we look at the bigger picture of this, and we've said this before, innovation is halted, and I have to admit this as someone that is a fanboy of Xbox. I don't think it's getting much attention right now. I really don't.
Yeah.
Because of this deal. Like, for updates and things right before the deal and a little after that they announced it. I mean, Xbox was hitting things out of the park with adding stuff to subscriptions, buying studios, adding games, getting all this. And now, since this deal, it's just like not there.
Yeah.
Like, there are games coming, yes, but okay, Redfall's coming, Tango Gameworks, but this is games that were already in the works and they bought the studio. And I get that, and I'm not trying to be mean to really anybody, because let's be real, these last couple of years, I get it, development and anything, things have been hard, but from what I see now, I'm like, and I feel like it's with everybody, stuff is just halted. I mean, yeah, we make fun of Stadia, you know, we make fun of these cloud gaming things that could have happened, but I mean, if they would have just held on for a little bit, gosh, they would have had a 10-year deal with all these games to add. Like, do you know what that would have done for Stadia?
That's a good question. I don't know whether or not Call of Duty was on Stadia or anything.
It was
it
not
not?
at the time.
Kind
No.
of
No I don't. If I remember, no Activision Blizzard game was on Stadia. They would have got a 10-year deal for this. You know, they would have looking at what Microsoft's doing is adding, and so I don't know. It's Anyway, go back. I mean, I don't know where I was going with the whole thing, but I guess I'm just saying, like, what I'm hoping from here on out, now that Microsoft has this, I hope there's a plan B to where now Phil Spencer can focus on Xbox and then allow, I believe his name is Brad Smith, the lawyer for Microsoft, and this can just take care of the Stadia stuff, or I'm sorry, not Stadia, the Activision Blizzard stuff, and allow Phil Spencer stuff to just take care of Xbox now. Like, I get, there's that, but I hope that they can start really being like, look, if this doesn't happen, what are we going to do here? Can we continue moving Xbox forward and stuff? And I'm hoping. It's hard to say. I don't know.
I think that the whole purchase of Activision Blizzard was partially a play for goodwill in the community, because it came, like, the announcement came right on the heels of Activision Blizzard's whole like massive expose of the horrible work culture that they had there, and the horrible general tendencies of a lot of their upper management, and stuff like that. And so I think that, Xbox was definitely looking at the visual aspect, what's the word I'm trying, the optics. They were looking at the optics of making an offer to buy up this company that owns a lot of beloved properties in the community, and say, yeah, we're going to fix all of their problems so that you can keep getting the awesome stuff that you want, without, kind of wondering in the back of your mind, yeah, but was somebody horribly sexually harassed while they were coding up this bit of the game or something like that?
Right.
So, like, I absolutely think that was one of their intents. And that has passed. Like, the momentary heat of that has passed. So I think that it's entirely possible that now that this has been blocked, Microsoft may just pay the $3 billion, like, crap, we weren't able to buy you. Here's $3 billion as a consolation prize to Activision Blizzard, and then turn around and just make an exclusivity deal with them, to put their games onto Game Pass and Xbox Cloud Gaming, which kind of has the same net result, except that they don't have control over the day-to-day operations of the company as much. They can still influence it. They can still, as part of their deal, put in caveats like, yeah, but if any of your executives get, like, brought up on sexual harassment charges again, then, we're going to cut ties or something like that.
Yeah.
So, like, they can do that. That may very well be the direction that they go, because I think that, yes, the optics were important to them, but the benefit of that is significantly diminished over the past year and change. And so they may just back out of the deal and come at it from a different direction, to try and get the games into Game Pass, because I think that that's probably the long-term goal, is just to have those games on their service to sweeten the pot so more people will pay for it.
I mean, they're going to have $69 billion freed up. So
yeah.
And what was interesting in there is the CMA even told Microsoft to buy smaller stuff, smaller acquisitions.
Yeah.
In their whole thing. So I don't know. I mean, I think Caleb also saying this, like, I would love to see Blizzard away from Activision. I really would.
Yeah, seriously.
But I understand, like, with all this. But and to be honest, I really don't know what's going to happen. I was actually pretty convinced that CMA would be like, yeah, we're good. And then the European Union would probably be like, maybe a little caveat thing here or there. And then they would close, and then they just close without the FTC. But now that this has happened, I don't know enough to be like, what could they do? What can't they do? So I guess we're just going to see how it plays out and go from there. I mean, do you have anything else to say on it?
No, not really. I think that there's a couple of possible things that could happen from here. I don't necessarily agree or disagree with the decision. It's a difficult call to make. And I think that from a legal, antitrust standpoint, the regulators made the call that they probably had to make based on, UK laws that I'm not terribly familiar with, given I don't live in the UK.
That is
pay attention
true
to their law.
We don't know that.
Like, I feel like this deal probably would have gone through under like US antitrust law. And it may still, the FTC may still rule on it and say, hey, yeah, this is fine by us. But I know that the EU in particular tends to be more strict about this sort of thing than the US does. And I guess apparently the UK is as well. So I kind of get why the call was made. Again, I'm not necessarily sure I disagree with it or agree with it. It's just,
we don't know.
It's a big hairy ball of wax, and I don't know that
$69
anybody
billion
wants to
ball
touch
of
it
wax.
at this point. Yeah, it keeps getting fuzzier and fuzzier as the days go by, and I think nobody wants to touch it at this point. So,
I guess a little thing to add to it is the day of the announcement that they were blocked, Microsoft signs another 10-year deal for an Xbox agreement with a European cloud gaming platform, Enware. They signed another 10-year cloud gaming with that. So,
yeah.
I mean, they're still, with the statements and everything, overall, Microsoft says that they're still wanting to pursue. They're going to go to courts with this. They're going to push forward. So,
Yep.
I mean, all we can do is believe what they say and see what the outcome is. So
it really just depends on whether or not they can convince these regulators, because, they'll appeal it. There will be more discovery. There will be more conversations with the CMA. They'll be able to hopefully get them to believe them when they say that, no, we're not going to restrict content only to our platform, because that seems like that's what they need to convince them of.
Yeah.
They need to convince them that they're going to continue to offer content from Activision Blizzard to other service providers for purposes of cloud gaming and on-person, like in-person console gaming. Basically, just all the other platforms are going to have access to these games. If they can convince them of the reality of that in the long term, I think there's a chance they could succeed on appeal. It just depends on whether or not they can do that.
I know Caleb and I have been talking a lot about it. Landon, did you have any comments or anything you wanted to say on the subject, or anything you thoughts?
I do have thoughts, actually. And they kind of are going to range from throughout the conversation that you guys had. But I didn't want to interrupt because
I figured I at least wanted you to have your
I didn't want to interrupt because the flow was it was good. So I was just letting it go.
I appreciate it. But yeah, I felt bad because I'm like, oh yeah, Landon, you probably...
And this is coming from someone that this is not going to affect in any way, shape, or form. Because I don't own an Xbox. I don't own a PlayStation. I don't cloud game. I mobile game, but I don't own any games by any of these companies. So this is not going to affect me in any way. So to me, I do.
I mean, you play Minecraft on your phone.
It's been a while.
I'm just messing. Okay.
But that's also not, well, anyways.
Anyways.
So going back to what Caleb said, how this, like right now we're still in the Wild West of game streaming, and that is true. And I think what the UK is trying to get away from is, if you go back, listener, if you've probably heard of Alexander Graham Bell, kind of a well-known person from, long time ago. He invented what we now call the telephone. And he also started a company called Bell Systems, also known as Ma Bell. It's just fairly well known. And what happened back in the day is they literally were buying all the infrastructure and all the companies that had anything to do with telephones or anything like that back in the day. And it got to a point where the US was like, okay, no, you have to split apart all the companies that you had purchased previously and separate out again, because it was a literal monopoly back then.
Yeah.
And it is now AT&T is now what used to be Bell. Like Bell Systems owns AT&T. That's their main brand that you're going to know about. But
Yep.
It used to be they were the thing. They were the phone lines everywhere. Was even inside of the US, in Canada, and they were even trying to get into the UK and Europe and stuff like that. But then, yes, the US government was like, this is bad. You need to break up. And they forced them to break up because it was a literal monopoly. But I also agree. So that's what the UK is trying to prevent here But I agree with Caleb in the sense that streaming is a different ballgame. It's not hardware. It's not it's just a different thing. And
Yeah.
I like the idea of having multiple options. And we do. I mean, yes, Microsoft is definitely the big player in the game right now. They own, well, for lack of a better term, they own the game streaming market. I mean, yes, there are other companies and there are other options that are better for certain types. Like Caleb said, GeForce Now is better for your PC type stuff rather than Xbox, but Xbox is getting better at that as well.
Mm-hmm.
But what would be better is to have these options that have all the games, and then some are better at certain things, like GeForce Now for PC games, and then Xbox Cloud for Xbox games, and a few PC games if you want to go there. And so I don't think that this is necessarily a good thing, but again, it's not going to affect me. The other thing I thought of was, I honestly don't think this has halted that much innovation when it comes to general gaming. Like when it comes to actually making games, I don't think it has any effect whatsoever. I think the delay in making games has just been that people are working from home more often now, and having to talk with other people, and when it comes to making these games is a little more difficult. I don't think this has halted that sense. I think what it has halted in the gaming sphere is the cloud gaming, because I guarantee Sony has had something that they've wanted to announce for the last year and a half, and they just won't because they don't want this deal to go through.
Yeah.
And so by them doing that, it has worked in their favor. I honestly think that if this hadn't been announced when it did, Sony would have come out with their own cloud gaming platform of some sort, and probably other companies would have announced some sort of cloud gaming platform as well, and it wouldn't have been an issue. But because of the timing of this announcement happened before whatever Sony was going to do, Sony was like, hey, we're going to wait. And I think that's where innovation has halted, because that's been everybody's argument, is the cloud gaming sphere. And that's why the UK has used that. Well, that's helped give them more kindling to throw onto this fire. That's my opinion on that. Also, what I think Activision Blizzard should do, if they wanted this deal to go through as much as Microsoft did, if this doesn't actually happen and Sony finally does announce what they're going to do and other companies announce what they're going to do, ABK should just be like, well, you know what? We're only going to put our games on Xbox cloud gaming, because you guys prevented this deal from happening and making our company better. So you don't get our games anymore. And that'll that could kind of show the UK and whoever else, if the EU doesn't agree with this or doesn't agree to the terms or whatever, that'll be like, well, you made this happen, so we're going to make this happen. I don't necessarily think that is going to happen, but it could.
No, probably not. They make too much money off of PlayStation to back away from it.
Well, I'm not saying take it off of the PlayStation. No, that's not I don't agree with that. I say take it off of their streaming. Like once Sony announces a streaming service, you take, and the games that are there, keep them there. But anything new, it's gone. You don't get them.
That's kind of the thing. Like Sony does have a streaming service.
Did you know Sony was one of the first people to have the streaming service?
They were, yeah.
Back in, was it the 3?
Yep.
PlayStation 3?
That's the problem, is that Sony, what they've been sitting on, as Landon has alluded to, is upgrading it. Like,
and that's the thing. Like, their streaming service sucked, and that's why nobody used it.
It was the first one, and it was groundbreaking. They were kind of leading in a lot of ways, and then everybody else caught up and surpassed them. And there were rumors, and Sony had actually talked. Like, Sony has combined their subscription stuff in a way to kind of make PlayStation Now and PlayStation Plus they've merged those into the same subscription, sort of the same way that Xbox did it. And everybody was talking about how that meant that probably an upgrade to PlayStation Now was coming, and everybody was super excited about it. And then this happened. And so that's what we've been waiting on this whole time, is for PlayStation to fetching just do something with PlayStation Now to make it a compelling competitor to Game Pass and cloud gaming, which, again, like Landon said, would have weakened their bargaining position against Microsoft. And so 100% that's why they've held on to this. And I suspect that there are probably at least half a dozen game announcements from both Sony and Microsoft that we have not heard about because they're exclusives. They're platform exclusives. And either of them announcing platform exclusives, like new ones, while this was going on, was going to weaken their bargaining position. Either one of them. And so 100% development has been happening on games that we have not heard about that we would really like to hear about, simply because both of these companies were worried about their bargaining position through this whole thing. So yeah, like, we're definitely going to see some stuff happening as this wraps up, in terms of that sort of thing. And yeah, it's, I mean, it is what it is.
Yeah, it is. No, it's just an interesting thing. It really is, this whole thing, and I would agree with you with the innovations, and I think that's kind of what I was meaning. And if I wasn't clear, with innovation, whether it's new games, whether it's Sony, because honestly, I hope I've mentioned this. I want Sony to compete, because then that makes Microsoft better, but then that makes Sony better, but then that makes Nintendo better. Well, Nintendo doesn't care, but let's be real. They just got internet, so let's just.
Well, what's really interesting to me is, like, I kind of understand where Sony's coming from to an extent, but at the same time, it's like Sony has been beating Xbox when it comes to hardware sales forever. They almost always do better than Xbox, and Microsoft is fine with that.
Do better than Xbox.
Yeah, and Microsoft has been okay with that to an extent, because they don't make a ton of money off of hardware. They're a software company. They always have been. They always will be. That's why they've done so well when it comes to this cloud gaming service, because they know software. Sony is a hardware company. They always have been. They always will be. Their software has always been meh at best, in my opinion. And so when it comes to this stuff, that's kind of why they fell so far behind. And so, like, for Sony to really complain and say, we're going to lose market share, is a bunch of bullcrap, because everyone is still going to buy a PlayStation that wants one, which is the majority of people that play console games.
Most people, yeah.
I mean, and if they want an Xbox, they're going to buy that too, because there's always going to be exclusives to Sony. There's always going to be exclusives to Xbox. That's just the way it's going to be. So for them to complain about this, I think, is stupid. I get why they complain about it, but it's a really dumb excuse.
I kind of feel
they're not going to lose sales for this happening. It's not going to happen.
On that note, I kind of feel what has happened, and this is just me, without them coming out and say it, I think the investments that Sony made this go around versus what Microsoft was doing, Sony saw that and was like, crap. Because Microsoft is innovating in a different way. So Microsoft's not fighting them in the same way, in this, if you will. I think Microsoft's like, well, we can't compete the way that we're going, obviously, because they sold last generation almost 3-1.
Yeah.
And they're like, okay, well, we need to innovate on what we are good at and what's our strengths. Cloud, this, so this is what we're investing in. And to where Sony wasn't investing in that, I think that's why they're like, oh, balls. Because during this whole thing, it's not been a lot of news, but Sony's been buying companies. Right before they said they didn't like the deal, they hurried and bought Bungie, got that settled away. Then they said they don't like the deal. Then they've bought a few other companies, but no one's talking about it. Development companies, all sorts of stuff.
Yeah.
And they're slowly, so what it is they're like, oh, if we can keep Microsoft wrapped up in this, that stalls them, and we could catch up with our investments here. And I think what it is the investments that Sony was doing, they were caught off guard by Microsoft's change in the diagram, in that being like, oh crap, they are going this way. That's not what we were doing. We got to shift. And so this is giving them time to shift over and to give that cloud thing that you were saying. I really do think that in support of that, I think that's what's happening. So that's what I feel is they were like, oh, balls. Okay, this could kill us. We need to shift, but I don't know. This is my thoughts on it.
I know something that Sony could do that if they really want to hurt Microsoft when it comes to sales is allow for Xbox cloud gaming to be a thing on the PlayStation.
Well, that's exactly what Microsoft wants. They went to PlayStation and asked if they wanted. They said no.
And Microsoft would then get the subscription money off of it.
Exactly.
And I think
they could use that. Sony would use it, and they could be like, well, look at how many, they'd be selling triple the amount of PlayStations to Xboxes because people don't need to buy an Xbox anymore because they can play their Xbox games on their PlayStation. Then make it so an Xbox controller
they can play their PlayStation
works on a PlayStation if they want. Or, I don't know. But I think that would be funny. It's not going to happen.
Honestly, that's what Microsoft wants. Like, they're a software company, so they're like, oh. And I feel like there might be one, maybe two generations left of the Xbox. Like,
I think that's probably true for just consoles in general, honestly.
Yeah.
I think we've got maybe one more generation after the current generation before they're gone as we know them. The reason Sony's not going to do that is because, like Xbox, they make pennies on the actual hardware that they sell. Yeah. Most of the money they make from the PlayStation is from selling games for it. And the licensing for games for it and stuff like that. And so if Microsoft has a subscription service on the PlayStation, then Sony made a couple bucks off of that PlayStation. But software subscription services, the profit margins on those things are insane.
Yeah.
Like through the roof in terms of versus hardware, especially. Unless you're Apple and you charge Apple prices for your hardware. Which game consoles do not. Like, fun fact, if you want a top-tier gaming PC, buy an Xbox Series X or a PlayStation 5. Don't buy a PC. In terms of the dollar amount, you can't approach it with a PC still. Because graphics cards are so dumb. But yeah, so like, that's, and so Sony, 100%, they're just waiting until they can get their own cloud gaming subscription out there to compete with Game Pass.
You guys want to know what's really funny? Microsoft's the one that's doing Sony's back end for their cloud game stuff.
Yep, Azure. Yep, big companies like that, they're hilarious. So yeah, Sony's 100% waiting for this deal to be officially struck down. They're waiting for Microsoft or ABK to back out of it and the whole thing to like, nope, this isn't happening anymore. And then they're going to be like, hey, here's this thing that competes directly with Game Pass that if all of these regulators had known about, they probably would have been a little bit more lenient towards Microsoft.
Yep.
So that's probably going to happen. But yeah, I mean, we'll just have to see how this plays out over the next couple of months.
Which we will be sadly talking about.
Yep.
I was hoping it would have been over. That's why I said sadly, but I guess content's content. But
it would be nice for it to be over at some point.
If anyone else has anything else or something they want to talk about, we can move on. Nope. Okay.
Yeah, I'm good with moving on.
Well, that's really, I'm going to be honest, that's really all the news and stuff I wanted to talk about was that. I feel like with what happened, I figured that would be a good point to talk that wasn't such a, do we want the deal to go, this, but really facts, what's happened, what are we looking at, and why. And so I think we had a pretty good discussion with that. So, okay, moving on. Landon, do you want to go ahead and talk about you have anything you want to talk about?
I do have one thing of tech news to talk about. So listener, you may be familiar with Authenticator apps. I know Microsoft has one. One of the more popular ones is one called Authy. Google has one. But Google Authenticator, for the longest time, has had one major flaw in the fact that it can only be used on one device at a time. Now, for most people, this probably isn't that big of a deal. I've been hearing a lot of complaints about it from tech like phone reviewers and whatnot, because especially people that potentially use two phones at a time, like this is my review phone, this is my regular phone or whatnot. They can only have it on one device at a time. And if they're switching all the time, it's kind of a pain in the butt to do that. But Google has officially said that they are now going to allow Google Authenticator to be used on multiple devices at the same time. So if you want, you can now use your PC to be the authenticator and a phone to be an authenticator somewhere in a different scenario. Or you can use multiple phones or a phone and a tablet or, whatnot. So that's kind of nice. They've kind of basically now caught up with everyone else when it comes to authenticator apps and how they're used and meant to be used.
Yeah.
So I think it's a good thing. It's one
now I just need Duo to catch up.
Don't get me started on messaging services, please. Anyways, especially Google's. But there was a time where I did try to use Google Authenticator. I'm like, this is just not fun. So I didn't use it. I don't use it anymore. I mean, if you don't necessarily have to use an authenticator app, if you're using something like a password manager, like I use Bitwarden, or you can use Apple's password manager, or even Google's password manager. There's a lot of those out there. Don't use LastPass anymore. Just don't do that. But so if you're using one of those, you don't necessarily need an authenticator app. It is still beneficial, but I actually use Microsoft's authenticator app because my work, thankfully, now requires us to use an authenticator app to sign into our emails and different things like that, because unfortunately they got hacked a while ago because someone was stupid. But they now require that.
I didn't hear about that.
Oh, it was, that's a story for another time.
Okay.
But so I do use Microsoft's Authenticator app just for my work account, but I still have all my passwords, even for that, saved in Bitwarden. So I'm covered when it comes to that. So, Authenticator apps are good. If you want, Google Authenticator is now, again, up to date when it comes to features on these apps. So it's now another option that I would say is recommended by most people. But that is all of my tech news. Just the one thing. Simple, nice update. Good thing.
True, but it's good. I mean, authenticators are good. I also use Microsoft's Authenticator.
Wait, what?
One thing
you do?
Yeah, weird.
Well, okay. Here's a question, and this will be hard for you to answer. But is there a service that Microsoft offers that you don't use?
YouTube Music?
No, Microsoft.
That's not Microsoft.
That I don't. Oh, okay. Sorry, my mind track went to Groove, and then that's
and you use YouTube
a
Music
musical
instead
service.
of Groove.
Right, that's what I meant. Sorry,
but that doesn't really exist anymore as an option. So,
Teams, because you guys won't use it with me.
That's true. That's okay. Okay, there you go.
Yep.
There's one.
There you go. But I'm not mad we're not using it, because I mean, you know what I mean. It's like,
is.
Well, I've never used it to know. You know what I mean? It's like I want to try it, but it's not killing me not, because guys, no, we have to do Microsoft. Come on. But what's funny is the person that does use it is Caleb, and he's
I
not
don't use it
all.
anymore. Thank heavens.
Oh, really? They stopped?
Well, no, I switched jobs. Not because of
he
Teams,
hated Teams so much that he got a new
he
job.
switched jobs because of Teams. Oh, sad. You know what was really funny is actually I couldn't get on Teams, so I created a calling all platforms team thing, and it was on the free tier. Well, they actually took the free tier away, and then all of a sudden it randomly just started logging me back in, like, oh, just kidding, you could still use it. I was like, jeez. But sorry, side note. One thing I was going to say, what was nice is there's quite a few options for Microsoft accounts. on the Authenticator. So if you have it linked, was one thing that I thought was really cool is you can actually see from the Authenticator last sign-ins, where they've signed in, things like that from the Authenticator. So I was like, oh, that's actually kind of nice. So thought it was cool. Side note, I know. But moving on. That was your only news you wanted to talk about?
Yep, that's it.
Okay. All right. Spend love. Got any rants? Things talking about some sweet intel?
No rants. No rants.
Wow.
Well, okay, aside from the, regulatory whatever nonsense we've already spent an hour talking about. I have news. Apple news. In fact, it's a leak. Apple leak, which doesn't happen very often. It's about Beats headphones because, listener, remember how Apple bought Beats? Yeah. That's the thing. So the Beats Studio Buds Plus had a listing that showed up on Amazon for a bit this past week. Now, the Beats Studio Buds are the Beats version of the AirPods Pro, and the Buds Plus would be the Beats version of the AirPods Pro 2. So, okay, this is just a listing that popped up on Amazon, did not say a whole lot, like these listings never do. And it was taken down fairly quickly because these headphones have not actually been officially announced. So, oops.
Dope.
But we did get to see some pictures of what these things should look like. That's kind of the only thing that we really didn't know. We're expecting the Buds Plus to basically just be AirPods Pros 2, except in slightly different housing that is going to look the same as the original Buds, the Studio Buds. So if you want to know what they look like in terms of their physical shape, you can go look at a picture of those. But we did find out black and ivory colorways for the thing, and then obviously a similar uplift in features versus the original version as the AirPods Pro 2 had over the original AirPods Pro, which is nice. The notable thing is that there is a semi-transparent colorway that evokes the Nothing brand quite strongly, which I thought was very interesting. It essentially kind of indicates that Nothing is affecting the industry at large, kind of the same way that Apple normally would.
Yeah, it's
so
interesting.
That's fun.
And I've saw this and I've heard the same, and it's funny because initially you would think, hey, Nothing, they're a new company, they're making earbuds and not, whatever. But they've actually been really popular when it comes to a lot of tech sites are talking about it. Like they were talking about it when it was new. They continue to talk about it because a lot of them have started using these Nothing earbuds because they actually sound decent. They look pretty good and they are relatively inexpensive. So,
yes.
and a lot of people like the transparent look of them. They look good. And that is starting to become partially because of them popular again. It was a really big thing in the 90s, which Apple did.
Oh, absolutely.
Apple took advantage of.
Kind of started that.
Yeah.
Apple were the ones that were like, you know what? Let's make the internals of the computer like a feature of the appearance of the computer.
Yeah.
That was where that started, was with the iMac more than anything else. And so, and then Apple goes and makes the iPod, which iconic device, but almost as iconic as the device itself were the earbuds and the ads for those earbuds. And how many knockoff white earbuds have you seen in your life, listener? Literally millions. Everybody copied that. Like Apple releases aluminum unibody laptops. Everybody makes an aluminum unibody laptop. It's like Apple, this is what they do. They set trends for the appearance of devices at a kind of ridiculous rate. And so to see a device that was designed by somebody who works for Apple mimicking the design of another device from another company in terms of just the general aesthetics, that's unusual. And honestly, I'm totally here for it. Like,
now, it's not, they're never going to do this under the Apple brand.
Probably not.
But they will definitely do it because, the Apple, AirPods are always going to be white, unfortunately. You're never going to get a different colorway, at least not in a while. If it ever happens.
Once again, those white earbuds are pretty iconic.
Yeah. And I don't think that's why they bought Beats, but that's a benefit to them buying Beats, is they can have the same features in a different package. And, oh, you want colors? Here's some Beats. You can get red, you can get black, you can get blue, you can get pink, there's different options.
Yeah.
You can get clear now. So
Yeah.
that's where, again, and a lot of people still may not even remember or know that Apple owns Beats. So they're going to be like, oh, Beats is copying nothing, not Apple. But no, it's Apple doing it. It's just, it is funny, though, that for the longest time, the trendsetters are now following somebody else.
Yeah. It's kind of fun. It's a fun reversal.
Yeah.
I will say, though, Apple, you cowards, give me a transparent backed iMac.
Oh, please. Everyone's been asking for this for like at least 5 years.
Seriously. Like translucent plastic on the back of the iMac. You know what? Make a plastic laptop, call it a MacBook, make it translucent. Give me a translucent option for that.
Sell it for $500
and
boom.
Sell it like starting at $500. Well, okay, maybe $600. They never really started their laptops quite as low as the Mac Mini. So, but like started at $600 or $700, plastic unibody design, translucent, available in a variety of different colors, and call it the MacBook or the iBook. Oh my gosh. I would kill to have that brand come back. So anyways, so it's a fun little piece of Apple news, really only notable because of that transparent colorway. Otherwise the Studio Buds Plus are going to be Studio Buds Plus?
Yeah, I mean,
I don't know.
There was a while there that I was looking into getting some new earbuds, and if you've been listening a while, I ended up with the AirPods Pro because, I mean, they're really nice. But I was seriously considering the Beats ones because they work just as well as AirPods do with iOS devices, which is partially why I was looking at them. But they also work really well with Android devices. They are tuned a little bit differently because they are Beats. They're going to be a little more bass heavy than your AirPods are or some other brands of headphones. But they're not bad. They sound decent. And again, they have all the same, especially on an iPhone, they have all the same features as an AirPod does. And that's a really big selling point, in my opinion. If you have an iPhone, get AirPods or Beats because just the way they work together is great. But if you have an Android device, Beats are still going to be really good as well. So, I like them.
Yep.
I just didn't buy them for specific reasons that I don't need to get into.
Fair enough.
All right. So that's my Apple news. Not too much going on. There has been some developments in the world of AMD. So this is fun. Remember how a couple weeks ago, listener, I was talking up the Ryzen 7000X 3D chips and how awesome the 7800X 3D in particular was? Turns out they're hotter than I thought. And they catch fire and burn up motherboard sockets and stuff like that. So initial reports of these chips literally catching fire, bubbling up on the bottom of the CPU and burning the pins in the socket on the motherboard did spark responses, spark, no pun intended, from motherboard makers and from AMD themselves saying that they're aware of the problem, they're doing research into it. This past week, AMD has said that they have identified and addressed the issue with the latest release of their AGESA microcode that they have sent out to motherboard manufacturers to be incorporated into their UEFI BIOS updates. Apparently, the voltage that was being fed into the chip was just too high, and it was causing problems. Now, inspection of the microcode designed to fix this problem also indicates that some of the temperature profiles and stuff like that were tweaked as well, which would suggest that there were several factors that were feeding into this, but mainly it was a voltage issue. So, if you have an X3D chip or you're planning on buying an X3D chip, you need to make sure that the motherboard that you are purchasing has the most up-to-date possible BIOS installed on it. So, if you don't know how to update the BIOS on your motherboard, you should probably go to your motherboard's website, or your motherboard manufacturer's website, go to their driver section, follow the instructions that they have there. You're going to be looking for updates to the BIOS coming from them in the next couple of weeks here as they work to get this fix implemented. Pretty much all of the motherboard partners that AMD have said that, this is like top priority for us. We're going to be getting this out the door as soon as possible. So be aware of it. Keep an eye on it. It is, in fact, possible that this is not just an X3D problem as well. Now, there's been way fewer reports of this happening to the normal 7000 series Ryzen processors, but there have been a few reports. So, just to be safe, if you have any Ryzen 7000 CPUs, you need to update your motherboard BIOS. And in the meantime, if you have any custom overclocks applied or anything like that, maybe turn those off, just in case.
Yes.
So, that's your PSA. I have some gaming stuff. Should I just jump straight into gaming? Like,
just jump right in.
We'll just go. Okay. So, also on AMD Rumor Town news, the Radeon RX 7600 XT. There was a leak this past week that we could expect that to launch as soon as the end of May. That is the date that AMD is targeting with this thing, which is kind of interesting to me. They have not released a 7800 XT or a 7700 XT, so this will be the third graphics card in their Radeon 7000 series. Okay, it's kind of weird that they're going straight from like the bleeding edge top end stuff to like, yeah, this is our like lower end kind of mid-grade consumer graphics card. But at the rumored price point of $250 to $300, it would be a godsend in the current graphics card market, considering that, you know, what is probably going to be fairly performance competitive 4060 Ti from Nvidia will probably cost at least $400, possibly $500, because screw the consumer Nvidia. Yeah, it would be really nice to see something cheaper that is also new, you know? So somebody pointed out that you could get, you know, your 4070, right? Yes. That I was whining about last week. You could get a 4070 for $600, or you could buy a PlayStation 5. And it turns out that at, you know, 4K, you're going to be getting about 60 FPS regardless, unless you're using DLSS, I suppose, on the 4070. But they were basically just pointing out that that's the entire gaming console for $600 if you buy the PlayStation. Whereas if you get the graphics card from Nvidia, that's just the graphics card. You still need a CPU and a motherboard and RAM and storage and a power supply and a case and all of this stuff. So, yeah, Nvidia's not great. I started talking about AMD. I turned it into a rant about Nvidia. I'm good.
I noticed that.
It's one of my special skills. Okay, moving on. Speaking about Nvidia as well. No, just kidding. EA, another company I enjoy ranting about. This past week, Star Wars Jedi Survivor, which is the sequel to a couple years ago, Jedi
Fallen Order.
Fallen Order. I wanted to say Jedi Outcast, but I'm all like, no. Wait a second. That's really old, that game. It's a good game. So, Jedi Survivor, the sequel to Jedi Fallen Order, which launched a couple of years ago to, you know, quite positive reviews, did launch this past week. Depending on whether or not the review that you're looking at was done on console or PC, you're going to see a very different reaction. So apparently, the console port of this game on Xbox and PlayStation was pretty good. People enjoyed it. Game plays well. They're happy with the story, and the, you know, graphics look nice and everything. Everybody was having a pretty good time. However, on the PC, apparently there was zero effort put into optimization for this thing. There are some game-breaking bugs and just general performance issues throughout the whole thing, despite a launch day patch of 120-something gigs. Now, to be clear, listener, the game itself is about 120-something gigs. So basically what they were saying is, we sold you this game, you downloaded the thing, installed it, and then on day one, when you were able to play it, you had to re-download the entire game and install it because it was so broken before. It kind of makes me wonder what the pre-launch day patch would have been like. Like, considering how bad it was after that patch, I'm like genuinely curious. How broken was this to begin with? So people were running into bugs that were causing like very important story-based cutscenes to just automatically skip. There was a bug that some people ran across that literally halted progress and they could not get past it. Game just was not able to be finished. And even when you weren't running up against stuff like that, the general performance issues were so bad that in some cases, with some settings, even of RTX 4090, the most absurdly overpowered graphics card in the world, that has performance characteristics in excess of 7 or 8 times as fast as the Xbox Series X or PlayStation 5, depending again on the circumstances, could barely manage 60 frames per second. And that's not because the game is so impressive or so pretty that it just absolutely drags the graphics card to its knees like the most recent update to Cyberpunk 2077 does, which, quite frankly, that's a very impressive update. And if you want to see utterly realistic, perfect lighting in a game, that's the only place you can see it. And it does genuinely make it so that a 4090 is like just crawling.
Mm-hmm.
But it looks good. It's like worth it, you know? It's all like, dang, this is only running 30 FPS, but it's the prettiest game I've ever seen. No, Jedi Survivor looked normal to crap and still could only get 60 FPS out of a 4090. So, I hope you didn't buy this game on PC, listener. And if you want to, wait. You know,
Yeah.
Don't buy it. EA did release a statement saying, we're so sorry, we'll patch it, which, like, everybody assumes, yeah, you're going to patch it, but, like, freaking, why didn't you just finish the game before you released it? This is a very consistent problem.
You ever notice that this last year, PC, I'm just going to call them ports, whether they were a port or not, PC ports of games have just been sucking.
Yeah, they kind of have been. Like, nobody.
I don't know why.
I think what's happened here is developers have stopped developing for previous gen consoles, which means that they can really push the, you know, higher performance, better pictures, stuff like that.
Which this is one of those games.
Definitely is one of those for sure. And because they're developing for the newer consoles and PC only, they can really kind of push it, what the thing is capable of. But because, you know, enough people actually own the new Xbox and the new PlayStation consoles, that's where they want to focus their optimization. You know, it used to be that basically they would optimize it for the PS4 and the Xbox One, and if it ran on those, basically any PC would run it like hotcakes, because those were such underpowered consoles compared to modern PCs. And so they didn't have to optimize it for the PC because it was, you know, it was kind of a piece of crap to begin with. But now they're optimizing it for these brand new consoles that, like I just said, unless you're spending way more than the cost of the console, you're not going to get anywhere close to their horsepower. Oops, turns out that those games don't run so well on PCs unless you optimize them for the PC, you know? So I think that's probably what happened here, is they were kind of used to optimizing for previous gen consoles and then just getting away with it on PC for absolutely zero effort. But that doesn't work with modern consoles because the PCs haven't caught up yet. So yeah, gotta optimize those suckers.
It was just something I found interesting because you never hear, it runs great on the console, but PC's terrible. You just don't hear that.
That is a next gen type of thing, which, like, I'm sure it would be the case for all of the PS5 exclusives that have launched, but they haven't launched those on PC yet, and they actually have some time to make those ports happen. So
I think what was it? It was a PC one or the PlayStation one, The Last of Us.
Yes. Well, I think they had issues with The Last of Us port and with
that
Spider-Man.
Horizon one. Wasn't it the Horizon one too that they did? They said was bad.
Well, so the Horizon one, yes, had some, but that wasn't like performance optimization issues with Horizon Zero Dawn. That port had like some just straight up bug, like game breaking bugs.
It's just weird to us because even me being on console, you just don't hear that. Like it's never been a thing. So
yeah, different. Well, and you know, it's so much easier to optimize for console than it is to optimize for PC. I empathize with the developers, but honestly, EA, you're a giant multi-billion-dollar company. You make the most money out of anybody in the gaming space just from selling games. You can afford to hire a few more people and give them a little bit more time to actually optimize the PC ports of your games. Just saying. especially on a Star Wars game. Like, come on, you know it's going to sell like hotcakes.
Yep.
What the heck? Okay, so my last piece of gaming news is actually, this is amazing. This is a return to our favorite segment of the podcast about how Doom modders tend to just be the best.
Yes. Oh, yeah.
So this is awesome. An ASCII version of Doom, right? So, listener, if you're not familiar with the whole concept of ASCII art, like basically just using characters on your keyboard in the Unicode standard to make pictures. And you've seen them. Everybody knows what this is, right? Like, surely.
Yeah.
There's an ASCII version of Doom that you can install in your Linux terminal and play there. So, some context, listener, if you're not familiar, Linux, it's an operating system. A lot of Linux happens through the terminal, which if you're on Windows or Mac OS, you may be familiar with as a command prompt on Windows, or on Mac OS, it's also called the terminal. So, you know what it is. And that's like the code interface of your operating system, right? Like, there's no pictures in there. The thing doesn't have any graphics rendering capability. It doesn't use, DirectX or Vulkan or OpenGL or anything like that to actually render images and stuff, because it's a freaking text editor. That's all it does. It allows you to directly interface with the text code of your OS. The terminal is very powerful for lots of things, but not games. Like, why would you install a terminal game on your computer? That's such a dumb idea. Except to one person who loved Doom. So they've made a version of Doom that renders the frames of the game out as ASCII text that you can install and run through the terminal in Linux. It's insane. It is recognizable, even color-coded, because yes, the Linux terminal can color the individual ASCII characters. And so the whole thing is in color. It's
I'm watching it right now.
Honestly,
oh my goodness.
It's just outstanding. So yeah, if you're running Linux and you want to install Doom and play it, I mean, there's actually about a half dozen different ways I can think of off the top of my head that you can run Doom inside of Linux. And now the terminal is one of them. How weird.
Probably not the most optimal way to play it, but it can happen. And this is why Doom modders
That's what's amazing. Yes, it's like just amazing that it exists. And I love it.
John Deere tractors, pregnancy tests, calculators powered by a potato.
By many potatoes.
Many potatoes.
So many potatoes, in fact, that apparently by the time he finished wiring up the last batch of potatoes, the first batch was like rotting into mush. So, but still producing electricity, so that's what matters.
God. All right, well,
there you go.
Is that everything?
That's what I got.
Awesome. Well, that's going to be the end of the episode, unless Landon has one more thing. All right.
Oh, yeah. I do have a bit of gaming news. And
it's gaming.
Yeah, I think this is good news, if I'm remembering this correctly. So, there was a game that was released in December of 1998 called Star Wars Rogue Squadron.
Oh.
And if I'm remembering correctly, that was a pretty popular game.
It was good, yeah.
It's a good.
Well, if you enjoyed this game and you would like to play it again, and you happen to be an Amazon Prime subscriber, this game is going to be available for free starting on May 4th, because of course, to anybody that's an Amazon Prime subscriber via their Prime Games part of Amazon. For PC. That is, gotta let you know, for PC. Right. So, that is, I think, pretty cool. Amazon bringing back awesome games into, and I mean, there are a lot of people that are Amazon Prime subscribers, and making it available just in there rather than having to pay for like Luna or something like that is nice. So it opens it up to a lot more people this way. Although it would have been kind of smart for them to be like, hey, this is going to be available on Luna, because then maybe people would have subscribed to that.
If I'm
But
not mistaken, I was kind of looking. I do, to add to this, the Prime Gaming. I think it'll also say what it comes from. So that basically you're getting a free code to a certain service. So I'm assuming it might be GOG.com that they'll give you the code to.
Oh, probably.
I'm assuming, because that's a lot of what like free games with Prime. So right now, just hopping on the website, you can actually get the Wolfenstein, the New Order. You can claim this game for free, but it's GOG.com.
Oh, heck yeah. Do that. GOG is great, listener.
Yeah, and so like they offer a bunch of stuff. They've offered DLC to like Warhammer Total War Warhammer. They've offered all sorts of things. Even like in-game content they'll offer to all sorts of games. If you're a Hearthstone player, you get free Hearthstone cards. If you play Overwatch, they'll give you tier skips for the battle pass. Play Fall Guys, they'll give you stuff there. I've seen Elder Scrolls Online. So yeah, it's actually not bad. They give you full games plus in-game content. So I would assume that would go from GOG.com, but yeah, but it's all free. So
yeah. Well, and just as a note, yeah, May the 4th is coming up, and that means that honestly, you should be looking if you want to buy any Star Wars games, you should be looking at the storefront of your choice on May 4th, because there will probably be sales on all of them.
Yeah,
true. And if you're an old school Battlefront guy, like I'm talking old school, not this gen or last gen. I'm talking like
the good one.
The good one. You those are still there. You can get them on GOG. You can get them on the Xbox as well. I think they remastered them to do the backwards compatibility stuff. So do that too.
Oh man, that's like a $10 savings on Rogue Squadron.
Yeah.
Like I'm looking at it right now, and dadgum, this is a classic. Holy cow!
You just took Caleb through memory lane there.
Yeah. But that is all my gaming news for this week,
which is good news.
So. Nice.
All right. Well, that's going to bring our episode to a close. We appreciate you, listener, for listening. If you want to get a hold of us, you can on our social media platforms, as well as our website at callingallplatforms.com. And check out any of our videos on YouTube at Calling All Platforms Gaming, as well as Calling All Platforms Tech. Take a look at those. If you want to support Landon for dealing with us chuckleheads and actually making it sound really decent, because it's really hard, especially with my recordings that Landon has to deal with, give him a little love, a little support. You can hop onto our Patreon there. Check out some of those tiers. I don't know have we updated some of the Patreon levels yet.
I'm trying to remember what the last update was.
I can't remember if we have. I know there's like you're going to use a Windows phone, but I'm like, ooh, I don't know about that. That even I'm like
getting worse and worse as the years go by. Man.
I know. I'm like, geez, I don't even know if I could turn one of them on. I should probably check that out first. But all right, dear listener, have a good week.
Bye-bye.
See ya.
Calling All Platforms is a production of Supporter Sound Studios. To learn more about how you can support the podcast, go to www.patreon.com/callingallplatforms.